Guys, here we go. Hope you all are having a great day today. We're going to pick up where we left off in our classes in section 54 with the reign of King David. So if you guys remember when we left off in class yesterday, David had killed Goliath, right? And then we saw as a result David's rise to fame and Saul fall from grace, fall from fame here in Israel. And as a result of Saul's death, now the throne is open. And so what's going to happen? We see really the opportunity for David to come to power. So notice how this starts off in chapter 2, verse 4. It says, the men of Judah came there and anointed David king over the house of Judah. So just highlight that, right? And just put the note here. It's gonna be hard to see the notes, guys, because it's gonna be hard to see the notes because I can't zoom in on the photo. Oh, I can, but the note doesn't zoom in. Why isn't this opening? Here we go. Let's see. Remove note. Nope, don't want to do that. Why don't I click it? Let's go. I guess I'll remove the note and add a new note. Let's go. Here you go. Add note. All right. David is from the tribe of Judah. That's important, right? So let's go ahead and put that down. That David is from the tribe of Judah. Let's see if I zoom in. Yeah. Whoop. Nope. It doesn't zoom. It doesn't zoom, folks. So you're on your own. You're on your own with it. I apologize for that. So just write down that David is from the tribe of Judah. And so you notice what's going to happen. One of the first things, the very first things that David is going to do is he's going to have the Ark of the Covenant moved to Jerusalem. All right. Jerusalem is where David is living, right? It's kind of like the capital city. We'll talk about that more in just a moment, right? And you know what it says here in verse 3? That they transported the Ark of God on a cart, right? And they do so with great fanfare, right? They have this big parade, lots of singing, lots of dancing before the Ark as they bring the Ark of the Covenant here into Jerusalem. And what starts to happen? It says in verse 6 that Uzzah, what a name. Uzzah. U-Z-Z-A-H. Uzzah. Uzzah stretches out his hands to steady the ark because it's tipping, right? Because it's being pulled on a cart by a bunch of oxen. And it starts to tip. And Uzzah stretches out his hand, touches the Ark of the Covenant, and steadies it and prevents it from falling. And what happens? Oh, this is strange. This is strange, right? It was verse 7. Then the Lord... Highlight verse 7. The Lord became angry with Uzzah, and God struck him on the spot, and he died there in God's presence. What the heck just happened, right? So, guys, here, first problem. If we go all the way back to Moses, right, in the book of Leviticus, when they build the Ark of the Covenant, it's supposed to be carried. The Ark should never be placed on a cart. Like, Uzzah, what are you doing, man? You're not supposed to put this thing on a cart. You're supposed to be carrying it through the poles that go through the bottom. But he's not thinking, right? And we talked about with Saul, God desires obedience, right? To recognize that this is not just some piece of furniture. We didn't just put a couch on a cart here and moved it into Jerusalem. This is the Ark of God. This is the throne of God. And so God's mad. He's upset that Uzzah did not listen. But notice what happens. David in verse 8 decides, I don't know if we should move this thing into the ark. And so it says David became frightened of the Lord that day. Right? So highlight that. David became frightened of the Lord that day. Right? And I think this is an important little note here that David is learned fear of the Lord. Just highlight that and put a note, fear of the Lord. Right? It's one of these like moments where David is going to learn the respect, right? That we're not just moving a couch into Jerusalem. We're not just moving a dresser. Like, we're moving the Ark of the Covenant. This is God's presence, the throne. That's where we're moving here into the Ark. You can't just do it willy-nilly. And so David is going to decide that the ark can't come into Jerusalem. He's going to instead, notice here in verse 10, just highlight this, David deposited it at the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite. All right? So the ark here is going to remain, verse 11, in the house of Obed-Edom for 3 months. Right? And while it's there, right, the ark is going to bless the house. The Lord is going to bless the house of Obed-Edom. Let's see, why can't this won't let me highlight anymore? Here we go. Let's see if I can get it to highlight. Nope. What is going on? It's working somehow. There we go. We'll do it this way. All right, there we go. Verse 11, right? The house is going to bless it, right? So why is this important, guys? Because first, David learned fear of the Lord. And now, in verse 11, David is learning the graciousness of God, right? So write this down. That David first learned fear of the Lord, right? But now he is learning the Lord's graciousness, right? That when you do, in fact, approach him with humility, with reverence, and you give him the proper due, then, oh my goodness, watch him bless your house tremendously. All right? So then David decides, I am, in fact, going to go ahead and move, right, the Ark of the Covenant into the city of David. Right, and so you can add a note here. This is aka Jerusalem. All right, it's another name for the city of Jerusalem. It's the city of David. Right, we could put a note at the capital city of Judah. All right, so the city of David is right. Jerusalem, capital city of Judah, the southern, right. The big tribe. Now, notice over here, I think this is pretty cool. Notice the cross-section of the city of Jerusalem here on a little map, right? Jerusalem was really important because notice how it sits here on the top of this hill, right? So it's like a plateau. And it makes Jerusalem really difficult to attack from neighboring enemies. And so Jerusalem is a really important capital city because it's pitched here on top of this hill. All right, on top of this hill, right? It's two valleys on either side, so it really helps with the the safety of the city itself. Right now, what happens? Right, remember Michal, right? Her name is Michelle. Well, we're going to call her Michelle, but her name is Michal. Yeah, when you say it. Right. Here in verse 16, it says, Michelle, the daughter of Saul, looked down from her window and saw the King David jumping and dancing before the Lord, and she despised him in his heart, right? So she gets all mad, right, that her husband is dancing before the ark in this way, right? She's all mad that David is welcoming in the ark in this way. Right. Part of that, folks, on a side note, is David is dancing in his birthday suit, right? Kind of signifying that he's got nothing before the Lord, right? Like everything he has is for the Lord. But because she is looking down on him with disdain, right? Michelle, right, is going to not have any children. She's going to be childless. She was childless till the day she died. You see that up here in the top right. All right? All right, so poor Michelle. Or Michal. Depends on how you want to say it. Chapter 7. This is where things get big, folks. This is where things get really, really big, right? So we're introduced to the prophet named Nathan. So highlight Nathan, right? And just put down this note, right? That he is the prophet, right? He is the prophet that will minister to David, right? So Samuel's dead. Probably should have told you that. He died before Saul even died, right? So Samuel's kaput. He's out. The next prophet that rises to power after Samuel is Nathan, right? And it's going to be Nathan's job to be the messenger, right, for God to David, to kind of make sure that David is on the right path. All right? And so David, in verse 2, comes to Nathan and says to him, "Here I am living in a house of cedar, but the ark of God dwells in a tent." Right? Like, all right, you got that. Right? And so Nathan says to him, "Whatever is in your heart, go and do, for the Lord will be with you." But it says the same night the word of the Lord came to Nathan and said, "Tell David, I don't want him to build my house. For I've never dwelt in a house from that day that I brought from Egypt, right? But I'm going down about in a tent or tabernacle as long as if I wandered about among the Israelites. Did I ever say a word to any of the judges whom I commanded to shepherd my people? Why have you not built me a house of cedar? So highlight verse 7. So notice how this starts off. David starts off by saying, hey, God, I want to build you a temple. Right? It's not fair. I'm living in this massive palace. You're the rightful king of Israel. I want to build you a temple. So, right, David, write this note down, David, in his humility, feels bad that he lives in a palace while God, or we'll say the ark is in a tent. Right? All right, so David in his humility feels bad that he lives in a palace while the ark is in a tent. Now, if this is hard for you guys to see on the TV, you have the link in Schoology to watch this video on my YouTube channel, right? So you can screenshot that, have the note, pause there while you copy, you watch on the TV. While you're at my YouTube channel, go ahead and bash that subscribe button, right? Like and subscribe, folks, or subscribe and like, whatever you cool kids say these days, right? Great. So that's the plan. David's like, I want to build God a palace, and God says to David, thanks, but no thanks, right? In verse 7, right? He just add that note. God says thanks, but no thanks, right? Like I don't need a palace. I'm okay living in a tent, but thanks for thinking of me, right? This may be the one time in life, folks, where it really was the thought that counts, right? People say that all the time, like, oh, well, I thought it was the thought that counts. No, it's not. It's my anniversary's coming up. If I just think about getting my wife a present and then I don't, what do you think's gonna happen? Well, I thought about getting flowers on the way home from work. I'm sleeping outside, right? It's not the thought that counts, guys. You gotta do, right? And so you notice what happens. God, right, is so happy. He's so happy that David made this gesture, that if you turn the page, he's going to give David 3 promises, right? And we'll start it here in verse 11 on the next page. It says, moreover, the Lord declares to you that the Lord will make a house for you. We're not talking about a house here, folks. We're not talking about a real building. We're talking about a family line, an ancestral line, right, that will never end, right? A house for you. When your days have been completed and you rest with your answers, I will raise up your offspring after you, sprung from your loins. He it is who will build a house for my name. All right, so highlight that, folks, right? He it is who will build a house for my name. Promise number 1 here, right? We'll add our little note. Promise numero 1. Solomon, this is David's son, will build the temple. All right? With him, I will establish my royal throne. So just write that down. Solomon is going to be the one that built it. David, you don't have to build the temple. Your son's going to build the temple. Solomon, he'll build it. All right? So that's promise number 1. Your son's going to be king. Right? Saul's son didn't get to be king. David, your son's going to be king. Promise number 1. Number 2, this one is the important one. I will be a father to him, and he shall be a son to me. Ruh-roh. That sounds pretty powerful language. Have we ever seen God say anywhere in the Old Testament yet that he would be a father and the king would be his son? No. So this has got to be focusing on someone else that's going to come in the future, right? This, guys, is the messianic promise, right? That not just is Solomon going to be king, but the Messiah, this is the messianic promise. The Messiah is going to come from your line. So put this down. This is the messianic promise that the Messiah will come from David's line. Yes, what a promise. What a promise. All right, that's promise number 2. Jesus is an ancestor of David. Wow. And then finally, verse 15, I will not withdraw my favor from him as I withdrew it from Saul who was before you. Right? This is the promise, right? Third note, third promise, right? The promise that David's line will last forever. There will always be a king sitting on the throne. Yes. Is there? Is this true? Yes, guys. The last king of David, from the line of David, is Jesus. And he sits on his throne, his heavenly throne. He reigns forever, right? So God is being faithful to this promise. All right. The rest of this chapter is going to talk to us about the Psalms. So we'll pause there. All right, because I know you guys had a quiz before, and it's probably getting long on this video. So, and hope you guys enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you guys on Tuesday. Right, so make sure while you're on my YouTube channel, subscribe and like, smash that subscribe button. Let's go with my retirement visit. 25 years, 30 years, whatever I got. So, all right, guys, have a great day. Talk to you soon. Out.